I have a lot of clients that come to me and ask me questions like, how do you stay motivated? How do you keep yourself going? And how do you make sure that you're achieving as much as you can? Well, on the one side of things is the motivation side of things, and that's something we can talk about in another video. But today, I want to talk about failure and how the fear of failure can hold you back, and how shifting one small thing can change how failure appears to you. A lot of times we see failure as like a final thing, something that just it's either a Boolean, yes or no. I succeeded or I failed. But in reality, there's slices of gray in there in between the black and the white of failure and success. Hey guys, Dhru Bee here with Nine Leadership. Today we're talking about failure versus feedback and how framing things a little bit differently can help how you achieve and how successful you are. Thomas Edison has a famous quote where when he was asked how many times it took him to find the light bulb, he said he found 10,000 ways to not make the light bulb until he found the one way to make it. Now, what that is just reframing what other people would consider to be failure as feedback. And what that is just taking information back and incorporating it into your current paradigm and shifting things so that you can actually create something that's a little better and a little better and a little better. And eventually you get to where you want to go by building on what that initial state thing was. This is often a case with software development methodologies like Agile or Scrum, where you start with a very simple minimum viable product, the MVP, and then you build on that. As long as you get that one piece right, then you keep iterating on that, building on that, and you try a couple things. And the idea is to fail early, fail often. It's not absolute failure, but it's kind of changing things a little bit. So you're getting feedback from your users or from your client, whoever it is you're building something for, and you get feedback from them. When you get the feedback, you take that feedback and incorporate it into the original product that you've created, and you give it back to them again and say, okay, now how about this? How about this? This sounds like a really tedious and kind of a long drawn out process, but in reality, this is happening over the course of like days rather than months or years. Now, if you draw this out, it can happen over the course of years as well. If you think about our lives and how we build ourselves up, it's all feedback and iteration. We learn by growing. We grow ourselves, we grow our personalities, we grow who we are and what we want to do. Even things like what we find funny or what we find appealing in our lives, all through iteration. We try different things out. Sometimes we try a different dish. We may like that dish, we may not. Now, we can either give feedback to the chef, depending on who the chef is, or you can either go somewhere else and try another dish altogether and completely scrap the restaurant. That doesn't mean anyone in the situation has failed. It's just not necessarily for you. The key when you're creating any kind of product or offering is to create something that's appealing to not to everybody, but to your particular demographic. That's why it's so extremely important to nail down your demographic first before you create any kind of offering or any kind of product. If you're trying to sell, I don't know, an ice cone to an Eskimo, as a common idea, you're probably not going to have very much success. But if you take that same ice cream cone and sell it to someone in the Sahara Desert or a group of people in the Sahara Desert, first of all, if you find a way to get the ice cream cone there without it melting, then sell it to people there, you probably have a lot more success because there the demand is much higher. That's your target demographic, whereas the Eskimos are not so much so. If you didn't take time to define that and you started selling to the Eskimos, then you would have nothing but failure. And maybe, 1 out of 50 times you might get one right. But that would be considered a failure. But also look underneath and why it's a failure. That's why the feedback is so powerful. Because I can tell you, what was your demographic? Who were you targeting? Were you targeting the right people? Did you have the right idea in mind? If you had the right target audience of who you're going after, was the idea right for them? If you have a particular audience you want to go for, what's the right offer for them? If you have an offer that you're settled on, you really want to make that offer, try different demographics and see which one it hits with. It might not hit with any of them, frankly, but it might hit with one that you may not have expected. So always be open to feedback. And as long as you consider things as feedback and not failure, you'll always be able to make a pivot and shift on things rather than taking things as absolutes and considering yourself a failure. And along with that no longer existing failure business, that you turn failure to feedback, now there's no longer the fear of failure. Because the fear of failure is a different experience. The fear of failure is something we can talk about more in depth in another video, but in its essence, it's the fear of being wrong about something. Now, again, being wrong, being a failure, failing at something, those are all absolutes that you can change by how you frame something. So if you change the way you frame it, you change the way you see it. change the way you see it, you change your beliefs, and then you change how you feel about that whole thing overall. So when you change something from failure to feedback, it's not as final anymore, and you can still build on that. So use things like that. Use it like a building block. Don't consider it as a wall. Think of it as a way to build the steps up to where you want to get to. I hope you guys enjoyed this video today. If you got something out of it, please hit the like button, hit subscribe. If you want to get notified of future videos as we publish them, please hit the bell and leave a comment below if you have a question or comment, if this really resonates with you, if it doesn't resonate with you. I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on this. Thanks again, guys, and take care and stay safe. See you next time.